What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video as draft season is starting to heat up. Yesterday, we had the quarterbacks go through the drills, and Malik Willis is going to be the guy that I focus on in this video. I know a lot of Giants fans are interested in him, whether it be for the Giants themselves or the possibility of teams jumping the Giants that could potentially make it so the Giants land better draft prospects. Regardless of how you feel about the Giants potentially taking a quarterback in this year's draft, the fact that Malik Willis is garnering a lot of attention only potentially could be good for the New York Giants, regardless of whether or not they're interested in taking a quarterback in this year's draft or not. In addition to that, I'm also going to touch on the story about Evan Ingram. Word has come out that the New York Giants may potentially be interested in bringing Evan Ingram back with the New York Giants in 2022, which to me would be really interesting because Evan Ingram, if that were the case, if that were to happen, would be through three different GMs. Of course, he was drafted by Jerry Reese. Dave Gettleman decided to stay on with him, and then Joe Schoen would elect to re-sign him. I don't really see this happening, but we'll talk further about that in detail throughout the video in terms of why the New York Giants may elect to bring him back. I don't really see it being much of a possibility, though, due mainly to the fact that we don't have a lot of money to spend. The only way that I could see Evan Ingram potentially being back with the New York Giants is if there wasn't much of a market for him. But due to the fact that Evan Ingram, as much as New York Giants fans may label him a bust, rightfully so, the guy drops a ton of passes, I do think there's going to be teams out there, however, that see the upside in Evan Ingram and are willing to give him some sort of contract. So I do think in the end, the New York Giants are going to have to let him go. He'll sign somewhere else and we'll get a compensation pick for him. But I suppose it's possible that the New York Giants could structure a contract to bring Evan Ingram back. After all, if you look at the New York Giants right now, their weapons aren't plentiful. I mean, outside of Kenny Golladay, who wasn't that good last year, didn't catch a touchdown, and Kadarius Toney, what do we really have? Sterling Shepard's not going to be playing next year. We all saw what Darius Slayton did last year. So maybe the New York Giants view a guy like Evan Ingram as a guy that could potentially be a chess piece in this offense, and maybe they feel with the improved offensive scheme, they could get a lot out of him. After all, they brought in Mike Kafka, and maybe they feel they could use Ingram in a role similar to that of a guy like Travis Kelce. But let's dive into the full story first. This came out from Ryan Dunleavy, who works for the New York Post. Then we'll jump into another quote that came out on GiantsWire.com. Giants and free agent Evan Ingram have not closed the door on a return, says even as Evan Ingram's versatility builds his market and the New York Giants look to shed salaries. Free agent Evan Ingram may shift from tight end to slot wide receiver, which I found was ironic because generally speaking, slot wide receivers are guys that are supposed to have really good hands. That is something that Evan Ingram really hasn't possessed throughout his career in the NFL. But according to Dunleavy and his sources, the New York Giants have not closed the books on potentially bringing him back with the New York Giants in 2022. This coming out from Giants Wire. Some teams are preparing to make free agent pitches to the 6'3", 240-pound Evan Ingram that include featuring him as a big-bodied slot receiver. Sources confirmed to the tight end market told the Post at the NFL Combine. The hybrid strategy was theorized throughout Ingram's 5 seasons with the Giants, but never truly enacted because he always was the top option at tight end and because he is determined to live up to the blocking aspects of the job. More and more offenses are moving away from position-defined players. If receiver Deebo Samuel can have 10 carries in a game, if tight end Travis Kelce can run or throw as a red zone quarterback, if running back Alvin Kamara can line up at receiver, and if Cordell Patterson could change positions from receiver to running back at age 30, then why not experiment further? So he's talking there about, the possibilities of using Evan Ingram in a role similar to a guy like Cordell Patterson, for example. And I do think there's going to be teams out there that see the value in a guy like Evan Ingram. But in the end, I do not think the New York Giants will be bringing him back. Now, if they had more cap space, that may very well be the case. And I guess it'll all depend on what his market is. And maybe maybe my estimation of what his market will be is higher than it will actually be. But I don't see it happening. I do think there's a team that's going to throw at least some money at him. And if that is the case, I think it'll be in the Giants' best interest to move on, get a compensation pick for him in 2023, and start to build your team elsewhere. At the end of the day, yes, he could add value to a team, especially if he's utilized properly. But the New York Giants have so many holes on this team, I just don't think it would be the best idea to, utilize a decent amount of their cap space on a player like Evan Ingram. And I think most Giant fans would get behind that. He hasn't exactly been a fan favorite with the New York Giants since he's been here, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. According to Dunleavy, it's still at least a distinct possibility. Now we're going to transition into Malik Willis. I'll show you guys a couple of clips from his combine yesterday. Of course, like I said at the top of the video, he's been getting a ton of interest by NFL fans, by scouts, by teams, so on and so forth. Here's what I'm going to say first off about Malik Willis. I think Malik Willis, and I'm going to have my first mock draft out probably in 3 or 4 days. I'll probably have a couple of trades included in it. It makes it more fun. But I think Malik Willis is going to go early in this year's draft for a few reasons. The first reason being, yes, his raw physical talent is very high. It's off the charts when you watch him play. The guy has a very big arm. He's super mobile. I'm not going to say that he has as big of an arm as Josh Allen. I've seen people make that comparison. I don't see that. I remember it was before it was on YouTube, but when I saw Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming, my jaw literally dropped. But he definitely has a big arm. He's very mobile, and the raw physical talent is there. The question is, are you going to be able to get the most out of him? Now, some Giants fans may say, well, look at the coaching staff you brought over and look what they were able to do with Josh Allen. Maybe they'd be able to do the same thing with Malik Willis. And to those fans, I'll say, if we draft Malik Willis, which I personally do not want to do, I will hope that the coaching staff could do the same thing they did with Josh Allen with Malik Willis. But I see the raw physical talent with a guy like Malik Willis, which is why I think in the end he will go top 10 in this draft, whether it be for a team jumping up to make sure they get him. The other thing I'll say is it's a very thin quarterback draft class. You talk to any scout in this, about this year's crop of quarterback prospects, almost all of them will tell you it's a thin quarterback draft class. So a guy like Malik Willis is going to stand out. And there are a lot of quarterback needy teams out there that are going to take a shot on a player like him. They're going to look at a guy like Josh Allen. They're going to say, well, we have the coaching staff that could get the most out of this kid. Now, if you talk to any pro Malik Willis guy, most people will tell you he's incredibly raw. And, he's coming from a small school in Liberty. A lot of people feel, at least as of now, he is a one-read quarterback, and they think he could use a year to learn to be able to, reach his full potential in the NFL. And are the New York Giants the ideal circumstance for that? I would argue no, due to the fact that we don't have the best of a surrounding cast and a roster and so on and so forth. I'm not necessarily in favor of taking a project quarterback, but I'm going to tell you why I am very happy that Malik Willis is getting a lot of attention throughout the NFL right now. Because either the New York Giants could potentially trade down or a team could jump the Giants to go up and get a guy like Malik Willis in the top 4 if they feel that either the Giants or the Panthers could either take him at 5 or 6. And if that were to happen, maybe a guy like Aquanu does in fact drop to the Giants or a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau. So regardless, I think the New York Giants need to at least express some interest in bringing Malik Willis in, being that there's been a lot of hype surrounding the quarterback prospect in the last couple of days. But I'll jump further into what people said about him at the combine, and then we'll show a couple of highlights as well. This coming out from NFL.com. Willis consistently made things look easy on Thursday night, talking about his combine performance, showing excellent arc on the deep throws. While he did overthrow a couple of shorter targets, his slants got into the receiver's hands in a hurry. That's another thing you'll notice. He's got zip on his throws. The moment wasn't too big for him, and he was encouraging his fellow combine participants during their reps. He chose not to run the 40-yard dash in Indianapolis, but he already has plenty of tape that displays what he could do with the ball in his hands. And that I agree with. I don't think we need to see that. I think we all know he definitely, has that ability, right? You look at him, it kind of reminds you of Jalen Hurts in terms of his running ability. A lot of people have made that comparison. Jalen Hurts with a stronger arm. In terms of potential trade partners, I wanted to pull this up for you guys as well. Was going to do a video on this. I probably will in the future in terms of what I think the New York Giants could get for them. But teams that could potentially be interested in moving up to get a guy like Malik Willis, I look at Atlanta at 8, I look at Denver at 9, and I look at Minnesota at 12. Kirk Cousins isn't, really the long-term answer there. Maybe they're interested in a guy like Willis or Pickett, and they're looking to move up above Carolina. I think right now the Giants with that 5th pick sit in a prime position to potentially trade out of that pick if they're not in love with the prospects that are there at 5 due to the fact that they're picking in front of Carolina, who a lot of people feel could go quarterback at 6. So if you're a team like Atlanta, Denver, or Minnesota, you may be looking to move up to that 5th slot with the New York Giants if, say, you can't move up to 4 where the New York Jets are picking. So I think the Giants need to at least express some interest and show some availability in terms of shopping around that 5th overall pick. So we'll see if the New York Giants elect to do that. Like I said, I'll have videos in the future talking about what exactly I think the New York Giants could try to get from those said teams. Another team that a lot of people have said has interest in Willis potentially is the Pittsburgh Steelers. People have talked about that going all the way back to the Senior Bowl, that the Steelers showed a lot of interest in Malik Willis there, and that has only ramped up after the NFL Combine. So we'll see if that'll be the case. But for me, as a fan that doesn't want a quarterback, I still welcome this. I love the hype that Malik Willis is getting, the attention that he's getting, due to the fact that, like I said, he may go in the top 4. Maybe a team jumps up to get him, or maybe a team looks to trade to that 5th pick with the New York Giants, something that I would not hesitate to do if I was the New York Giants general manager, if the deal was right, and say I was not in love with the players that were there at 5th overall. I think the New York Giants need to be able to get as much draft capital as they possibly can, especially if they're not going to take a quarterback in this year's draft, because you want to have more insurance going into 2023 to go up and get that quarterback if Daniel Jones doesn't show significant growth in his 4th season as the New York Giants quarterback. So I think only good things are coming out with all the hype surrounding Malik Willis. I'm not surprised by it. It happens every year, especially during the combine season. You see these guys in shorts, you see them make a couple of really impressive throws, and fans start to drool and start to think that they could be the next great thing. Listen, the quarterback position is incredibly unpredictable. I don't care what any scout tells you. I don't care what any expert tells you. It's probably the most unpredictable position in all of sports due to several variables: the offensive coordinator, the surrounding cast, the offensive line, and it's just an incredibly unpredictable position. You look at a guy like Jamarcus Russell, almost anybody would have told you the guy had elite talent. Didn't work out at the NFL level. He was 1st overall. You look at several other guys that have gone in the 3rd and 4th round of drafts. You look at Tom Brady, who went in the 6th round. Sometimes they surprise. So it's a guessing game, especially at the quarterback position. So I'm not going to tell you that any of these guys are going to be a bust or they're going to be great before we see how they end up in the NFL. I just am of the belief, as a New York Giants fan, I don't think it's the right year to go out there and get that quarterback. I would rather fill in the rest of the holes on this roster and then bring in that said quarterback. If the Giants elect to take Willis or Pickett, I'll have to hope that they're right as a New York Giants fan, much like I hope they were right when they drafted Daniel Jones. But I wanted to show you guys a couple of throws of Malik Willis yesterday at the Combine, what a lot of people are drooling over. Here he is throwing a couple of 15, 20-yard slants, and then we'll show a couple of the deep throws on the deep patterns on the left and right sideline. So, yeah, I mean, these are just slants, whatever. These aren't the throws that are going to make your jaw drop. However, the deep throws, here's one of them. You'll see he launches this from about the 10-yard line, and it lands at about the 30. So that's about a 60-yard throw in stride, and then he doubles it up here where he actually overthrows the receiver, and I think it lands at about the 26. So, I mean, you're talking about, 64-yard throw in the air, of course, without pads. But regardless, it shows you the raw physical talent that a lot of people have talked about with Malik Willis and why so many people are interested in this prospect. And I understand it. And if he has great coaching and if he's put in the ideal circumstance, he's certainly a guy that may grow into be a top-tier quarterback in the NFL. And we'll see what happens in the NFL draft. It's going to be a lot of fun covering it. We got 6 weeks before the draft gets here. It's going to be here before I know it. So really looking forward to talking about it with you guys, doing a couple of mock drafts. I'm sure I'll have a couple of mocks where we maybe trade down, where we double up on the defense, double up on the offensive line. There's so many possibilities that the Giants could do in this upcoming draft, and I'm sure Malik Willis is going to be a big part of the process. But he was the big name today. The edge rushers and the linebackers are going at it. If something interesting comes out on, a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, I'll probably have a video out on that, if not tonight, tomorrow, talking about the crop there. But I wanted to have a video up on Malik Willis. I know a lot of Giants fans are interested in him, whether it be because they want him to be with the Giants or because they want teams to trade up to try to get him so somebody falls in our lap or we potentially trade down. Can't wait to see how it all plays out. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.